In this video, we'll talk about the last section of a rhetorical analysis essay, the conclusion. Before we do that, let's do a quick recap of the previous two videos. In the first video, called Getting Started, we talked about the introduction. The first thing we talked about was how to bat the prompt, which was to look for background, advice, and the task in the prompt. The second thing we talked about was how the intro should be about 4 to 6 sentences with background information and context, and that you should end that introduction with a thesis using the following format. In the passage, letter, speech, blanks, use of blank, suggests/reinforces blank. In the second video, we talked about body paragraphs. In your rhetorical analysis essay, you should have 2 to 3 body paragraphs. In each paragraph, you should analyze the author's use of one rhetorical device or strategy. You always want to tie that rhetorical device back to the author's purpose and message, and then you can refer both implicitly and explicitly to the passage. In this video, we only have one slide for a conclusion paragraph because it's pretty simple. The conclusion should be the quickest and the easiest paragraph for you to write. You've already done all the work in the intro and body paragraphs, now you're just wrapping it up. So I've got 2 steps for you. Number 1 is to keep the conclusion brief. The conclusion should be about 2 to 4 sentences. Remember, you only have 40 minutes to write this essay, so you want to be conscious of time as you write. You may be running out of time when you get to the conclusion. You need something as a conclusion, but don't spend precious time writing it. Just write 2 to 4 sentences that wrap up the essay and move on. The second step is to remind your readers what you said in your introduction. You want to include the author or the speaker's name again, mention the type or title of the writing, and then restate the author's purpose or message and include the devices you analyzed. As an example, here's the conclusion based on Margaret Thatcher's eulogy for Ronald Reagan. In 2004, Margaret Thatcher gave a eulogy for former U.S. President Ronald Reagan. In the eulogy, Thatcher successfully used juxtaposition and anecdotes to highlight how Reagan was a great person and a great president. Overall, her eulogy honored Reagan's memory and reminded her audience that Reagan strove for peace in the country and the world, and his legacy should be maintained through national and international unity. At this point, you might want to stop the video and go back and rewatch the other videos to see how this conclusion fits with the introduction and body paragraph that we talked about then. Before we end the video, I have a few extra additional tips for this essay. The first tip is that you can consider diction, tone, and syntax as rhetorical devices and strategies as you analyze a piece. Diction is word choice, and the question you kind of want to answer is how does the author's word choice help him or her convey the message? Do not write, the author uses diction in order to, in your topic sentence. Every author, every person, when they say something, uses diction. They use words. You must say what kind of diction. So as an example, you could say, the author uses patriotic diction in order to convey blah, blah, blah. But you see how I don't just say diction, I say what kind of diction, patriotic diction. Tone is an author's attitude towards a subject, so you could talk about how the author's attitude helps them convey the message. And then syntax is sentence structure. You can write about how the author's sentence structure conveys the message. Did the author use long, complex sentences that correlate with the complexity of their subject matter? Did they use a combination of long and short sentences, and did the short and simple sentences emphasize a point? Make sure that you can consider diction, tone, and syntax when you're analyzing a passage. The second tip is just another way to think about the structure of a body paragraph. Each body paragraph should start out with your topic sentence, where you say that the author uses X rhetorical device strategy to convey Y, the purpose of the message. Then you want to move into evidence, which are direct quotes or implicitly referring to the text. And then the third thing is you want to make sure you comment on that evidence, where you explain the author's intent for using the device that you mentioned. And you can repeat evidence and commentary for 2 or 3 more pieces of evidence of that rhetorical device if needed. And the final tip is to practice. Use the prep book passages if you got a prep book. Use multiple choice passages that we take in class to practice writing these essays, or take passages even from your outside reading book and find 1 or 2 that have rhetorical devices and just practice writing the structure and the format of what these essays should look like.